Hello, it's Deborah from the attic, and I'm really pleased to be able to bring you the latest Simon Says stamp card kit. This is 5 weeks late, and it was at a point where I thought I'm never going to see this kit, and it's got so many lovely things in it, but it's arrived. This is the kit called Fly Me Away, and I'm going to do a slightly different video to the one that we usually do. So let me just talk you through the kit first, and I'll tell you how I'm going to do the cards. So to begin with, the thing I was most excited about seeing were the 3D texture fades from Tim Holtz. These are quite different because they're a lot deeper, so when you emboss your card it's a lot deeper and you get more detail in the image. So in this you can see it's sort of flowery. Not only do you get a leaf, you also get the veins on the leaf. And if I turn this card over, perhaps you can see, I think this embossing folder presses into the paper at a depth of around about a maximum of 3mm, and I imagine that's the deepest you can press into paper before it splits. So I'm really looking forward to using that on my cards. The other thing I was looking forward to trying is the Distress Resist spray. This is a textured resist, so when you spray and spritz it onto your card or through your stencils, what it will do is it'll make a little noise like that. No, it won't, that's my phone. It will dry, and then not only will it be a resist, it will also give you a texture that Tim Holtz describes as nuggety. So I'm quite looking forward to nuggety resist. Then there is a really sweet little watercolour set of 3 paints, so red, yellow and blue, and they will go beautifully to colour in that little image. There are 2 envelopes. As you know, I like an envelope, and it doesn't always end as an envelope, but these are beautiful. This is pearl and cornflower blue. The papers are stunning, just stunning. All watercolour, all beautiful. Can't say very much about them other than I think they're gorgeous. This is the front cover, but I could see that being used as washi tape. I think you could use that, couldn't you? It'd be too pretty not to use. And I'm going to do a quick flip through to give you an idea of the variety and the colours. I think these are beautiful. I think these are possibly the nicest papers that I've had in a Simon Says stamp kit. They're just dreamy. Beautiful images. The stamp set as well this time round is huge. It's a really, really big stamp set. And there's this massive floral band that you can use across a card, down the side of a card, to fill a card, as a background on a card, as the front piece on a card. It's got so many opportunities. And then there are these individual flowers as well to help. You could give a sort of a decoupage 3D effect as well. The sentiments are very good. You can mix and match them to suit the requirements of your card. So there are things like, for example, there's a little one there that says "From all of us." Well, that could be "Happy birthday from all of us." Love and hugs from all of us. So I like that you can mix and match your sentiments, and I also like that there are these big words, and these look like these are big enough that they could also be coloured in. So using your maybe using your little paint set that you got in the kit, maybe they could be coloured in using that. And then there are 5 gorgeous cards, and you can see the colours here, that they match beautifully with the papers. And then the final one at the back here is gold. I'm not going to take this out and put it on top as much as I'd like to, because under the lights it would just glare at you and it would spoil it for you. So the cards are beautiful, and I'm really looking forward to combining them with the papers. I said I was going to do something slightly differently for this video. Now, because I know there's going to be another kit landing on my doorstep very, very soon, I don't have time to go through a full make. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my 10 cards, and then I'm going to share them with you. I'm just going to do a flip through of my cards. So apologies if you want more detail and you want the detail of how to make each of the cards, but I think that way at least I can show you something with this kit, and hopefully the next ones will arrive in good time so that we can share them earlier. For card 1, I used one of the papers in the set for the backing, and I used my scan and cut to cut out the word fly. If you have die cut for letters, you could do it that way, or actually the word fly has got enough straight lines that it would be easy enough, I think, to draw this or print it out and then cut around that, use that as a template and cut around it with a craft knife. But the fly needs to be cut from exactly where you're going to replace it on your piece of paper. Once I'd cut my letters out, I backed them with some foam, and this makes the letters stand out ever so slightly. I used one of the stamps, the one that says your way. I quite like the idea of, everybody says, you know, do your own thing, go your own way. I quite like to fly your own way. And then to complete the card, I added a little balloon that I cut out from the same piece of paper that I used for the backing. This was mounted as well on a piece of foam. And I put a tiny little bit of glitter using my Nouveau clear glitter pen on the words so that those words ever so slightly stand out. Card 2 is a real contrast to card 1. I used the gold from the paper set, and I used one of the grey cards which I cut down to make a card base, and I used some tracing paper that I had in my stash. So I inked up my large stamp, I stamped it onto the tracing paper, then I used a white Posca pen to cover in all the areas that weren't part of the stamp, and I gilded these leaves. I didn't use gold embossing powder and heat set it because I think that would have warped the tracing paper. So I used these leaves, gold leaves. This is some that I had from Indigo Blue, and I simply rubbed them into the image. I used glue on my stamp rather than standard Versamark ink, and then I was able to gild these leaves and just rub the leaves into place and then brush it all to one side, and what you're left with is this beautiful shimmery image from the stamp. Instead of gluing along the top, you would normally just glue your paper onto the top of the card, but because this is tracing paper, glue was going to show through. So what I did was I folded the tracing paper over the top corners of the card, having already cut out around the bottom of my image. Then I added Love and Hugs in plain black ink and left it all to dry. Card 3 was lovely and straightforward. I cut one of the panels from the patterned sheet of paper. I embossed Happy Birthday using a beautiful blue powder. This is ultrafine steel navy, which is a Simon Says stamp embossing powder from a previous kit. And to add interest to the card, I backed it with a little bit of net. This is something that I had in my fabric stash, and I just glued that onto a piece of blue card and then set my panel on the top. Card 4 is a plain white card backing, and I used the large stamp which I stamped on here twice, and then I used gold embossing powder to give it this beautiful shimmer and create a lovely background. To top the card off, I took a thin strip of paper that I'd done some experimentation with two Distress Oxide inks, and I used that to create a little band, and on top of the little band I put two die cut pieces of card. The first one on the top here has got a nice border using Distress Oxide inks, and I've stamped Happy and embossed it with gold. And then this piece underneath it was plain white card. Then I used my stamp to stamp onto it. I used white heat embossing powder, and I set that before going over the top of it with Distress Oxide inks and one of my foam pads. And when you go over it like that, you get this sort of, it looks like a resist, you get this lovely white underneath, and I wanted to do that to give the card some contrast and to keep the white theme going, the white theme from the base card going as well in my top design. Card 5, this is very lovely to do, this is very soothing to do. I used the paints that were provided as part of the kit, and I did some colour mixing with those to give me a nice contrast on my flowers and my leaves. And once the paint on the words flowers grow had dried, I added glossy accents to make that shimmer and shine, and then because I liked that effect so much I added it onto the flowers as well. Card 6 is a lovely, straightforward, simple card, but I like the way that the combination of the inking and the angles makes this look as if the card has depth and has something 3D going on, but in fact it's completely flat. The way that I achieved that effect was I took one of the pieces of paper, I cut it into thin strips, and then I alternated the strips, so I made sure that I didn't have the same colours on top of each other. So there's purple here, purple here, purple here, so otherwise it would have looked too static. So I shifted the little strips around and put them down. Then I angled them, and I made sure that I was happy with the sorts of angles, and having done that, to give it depth and dimension, I took some grey ink, or just a soft grey ink, and I went around the bottom and the sides of each of my little strips of paper, and the effect makes it look as if it's got far more depth and 3D in the card. Then I added Love and Hugs, one of the sentiments from the stamp set, and I embossed that with white. I absolutely fell in love with this very beautiful 3D embossing folder, and I had a lot of fun playing with that, and there were several cards that nearly made this and then didn't quite, but I've got a lot of cards now with this. I used the gold card that was included in the kit to emboss this image, and then I went over it with a pale blue Nouveau mousse. So I used a brush just to go over it because I wanted to highlight the lovely 3D effect of this embossing folder. And I also wanted to take down the shimmer of the gold. I didn't want it to be... the gold was a beautiful buff gold, but I wanted to just take it down a little bit. So I just took my brush and I just took it over the image, and then I did it in a different direction to make sure that I was getting it into these little corners and all these little lines here on the leaves. When that was done, I used just an ordinary little cloth, and I buffed it off until I was happy with what remained. I stamped up the individual flowers that came with the kit, and I heat embossed them with gold powder. Once I'd done that, I used a blue watercolour pen to add colour in the creases of the flower, and then rather than use water to disperse it, I used a Nouveau clear glitter pen, and that has got quite a lot of fluidity into it, and that pulls the colour out. So that has given me a beautiful shimmer on my flowers. I added one little flower in the bottom and one at the top, and then I put a little bit of craft foam behind this flower here to raise it up a little bit and turn this into a 3D card. Then I added the word beautiful, and I should tell you that this is where my envelope went. So the beautiful is cut from the envelope, it's the flap of the envelope, and it was just long enough to allow me to use it and for a little strip on my card to take the word beautiful, which I stamped and then heat embossed using white embossing powder. And the combination of the shimmer from the gold and from the flowers and from the pearlised paper of the envelope worked very well together. I thought it might be a little bit too much, but actually they complement each other really well. Card 8 was a nice contrast again to the previous card, and I used one of the colours of card from the kit as my base. I added a plain waste piece of card down the centre of my plain white card, and I held it in place with a little bit of removable tape. Then I took my stamp, my large stamp image, and I stamped twice, overlapping onto the piece of waste card. I kept the piece of waste card in place while I added white powder to my white card. It was quite difficult to see at this point. And then I heat embossed it and I set it. When it was cool, I took 2 different shades of Distress Oxide inks and my foam applicator, or you could use whatever ink colours you have, and I added the colour over the image, the 2 different colours, and then once I had the white showing through, again like a bit of a resist, I was able to remove the central waste piece of paper and discard that. I took my stamp that says happy and then one that says birthday, and I used the same colour of ink that I had used to create the, I think I took the purple from the ink colour that I'd used to cover over this sort of resist technique, and I stamped up happy and birthday. To complete the card I had some enamel dots that I used, and they were such nice colours, I just added them to this as well, just in the corners. I try not to use anything that isn't a part of the kit, but this was tempting. And in the next card I also used something that wasn't part of the kit because I've been looking for an excuse to show you this for quite a while. This is card 9. Now card 9 has got a really beautiful technique used on the embossing. It looks as if this has gone through a black piece of card. It hasn't. This is one of the gold sheets of card that were included in the kit. I ran it through with the embossing folder, and then to highlight this I used a product from Deco Art Media. This is called Antiquing Cream, and it's quite a thin liquid, but what it does, if you apply it with a brush over an image or over something that has got raised up embossing or anything like that, and if you let it dry, and it doesn't take long to dry, or you can dry it off with a craft gun, then you can remove it. You take a wet cloth and you just very gently wipe away the antiquing cream, which is black, and it will reveal the colour of whatever is underneath it. In this case, the gold. And I think that's a stunning effect. I love it. I use it on lots of other projects, but I haven't used it on a card that I've shown you before. So I hope that you maybe go and see if you can find this. It comes in a couple of different colours. You can get it in white. You can also get it in a rather nice blue, which makes everything look very, very aged. What's really cool about this item is that you can go away, leave it to dry, and if you come back to it in a day or 6 months with a damp cloth, you will still be able to remove the upper surface, and all that will remove is whatever you touch. So be careful that you don't go too deep into the dips. But I think that's very effective, and this embossing folder really lends itself to something like this beautifully. I completed the card with a little strip of gold braid that I had in my stash, and I made a little bow, and I added love and hugs and embossed it in black embossing powder. Card 10 was possibly the most straightforward. For card 10 I used the paper that actually came on the outer of the papers that were contained within the pack. So this is from the sort of advertising material on the front of the card, because I thought this looked like washi tape and I thought it looked really nice with all those strips. So I cut it to size. I used a die cut that I have to cut this curve. I stamp and heat embossed Wishing You Joy, again using the ultrafine steel navy Simon Says stamp embossing powder that was in a kit 2 or 3 months ago. And I cut out 2 balloons that were also on the same page as this paper that I've used, and I used some foam pads just to lift those up to give the card a little bit of dimension. That completes our 10 cards from this kit. As I explained at the beginning, I've taken a different route to get these cards to you. I've taken a faster route than usual, although I will be back to my normal style where I show you how I make each individual card in the next video with the next kit, but I'd still welcome your feedback on how you feel this one went. So in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your time. As always, you know I appreciate it. If you've got anything you want to say to me, please add it in the comments below. I always read all of them and I try and respond to all of them. I'm going to leave you with a little bit of music now and a close-up of all of the cards that we've made today, and hopefully we'll see each other again soon. Take care.